Hi, good morning. So, as a Catholic, number one, and as a writer, I think that it's important that people in our community, as in the Catholic community, understand what good things are to be able to read in the community. So, I've written a couple of books here, as you can see, and I've got another one on the way right now. I've written more than this, but these are the main two. Um, and I've got another one on the way right now called Legacy Code. But what I want to highlight today is this book here, is the Liturgy of the Land. I've been reading this, and as a permaculture enthusiast and somebody that loves agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and homesteading topics, and somebody that has done this before, this is an excellent read. If you're into farming at all, if you're into homesteading at all, and you don't have to be Catholic to appreciate this book. It's written by Jason Craig and Thomas Van Horn. I don't know if you can see that. It's written by Jason Craig and Thomas Van Horn. It's put out by Tan Books, and it, if you're interested in homesteading at all and the family aspect of getting back to the land and getting back to what's important about life, what God thinks is important about life outside of money, outside of politics, outside of all these things. Of course, we need these things, but if you want a true, maybe a Wendell Berry style read, that takes the care of creation, as Pope Francis put it, and combines it with really Catholic family values, then I think that the Liturgy of the Land, which you can get straight from Tan Books, often at a discount, or you can get it on Amazon. I think I got mine from Tan, because they were running a special or something like that. It was like, I don't know, a few bucks off. Um, and I've had this book on audio for a while, and I picked it back up and started listening to it again. And it just reminds me that there's so much in this world that we take for granted as what we're supposed to be doing with our lives. And oftentimes it comes down to financial things that we believe we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be climbing, getting bigger, getting better, fancier cars, or else we're just not part of the club, right? Especially where when you're in a society where you're sending your kids to private schools, often Catholic schools or Episcopal schools, and everybody over there has a nice car. So you have to have that same kind of vehicle, or it's got to be the new Escalade or the new Denali or whatever, and it's got to, and it's and I don't really pay much attention to these things, but I am quite guilty of buying those. um, the I try not to pay too much attention to it. I want my wife to drive a nice vehicle, and I don't care what I drive. And I'm usually in an F2, in like an F-150 or something like that, older model, something that I've had for a long time. I'm comfortable in, something that doesn't have too many computers in it, or not as many as they do today. And when you read this book, it can help you. I just got a new light. We're still trying to get her figured out. When you read this book, it can help you to bring some of that into perspective. What was a wake-up call for me is that in American society, we tend to jump out of the nest at 18, let's say, and go off, and then we, oftentimes leave state and go to another school or whatever the case is. I didn't leave state, but I definitely left the house at 18. And what this book reminds me is that that's a new phenomenon. That's a new creation in the last 100 years. That this is not even the last 100 years that this has been happening. Whereas around the turn of the century, not this century, and the 20th century, still the majority of people were farming, and they live on a homestead. And I think that part of our goals are to, get that several hundred acres that I desire, have a nice home on it for the family, and also be able to part out other parcels of it for my kids to get started, so that so they can have their own home. And when they start out in life, when they get married or whatever the case is, they can have their own home and their own piece of land, because you don't need much land to do what your family needs to do. And we can all operate it together, right? And we're not talking about a giant cattle ranch. We're talking about a few hundred acres, which is cows enough for our family. And we can raise other things that we want or need. We like to raise bees. We like to, everybody likes goats and stuff like that. I think that we could make it exactly what we wanted it to be. Of course, chickens, obviously. But we can make it exactly what we wanted it to be without having to sacrifice family. And this is the way that it has been done for a very long time, especially now that we're blessed to be able to make money from wherever we are. We don't have to rely on income strictly from farming. We can use income and have income from from trading. We work online, and that's what we do. And I've been doing that for a long time now. So it blesses us to be able to make money from wherever we are. The discipline comes in not spending it, because that's what creates the greed. In a society where we work on trade and don't, and it, whereas we make money without creating anything, let's say we make money without actually making anything. So, for example, I get on the computer, I make money without making anything. Okay. Therefore, personally, I had to create SWAT trade to train people and to deliver value with this skill somewhere. Okay. And that's part of the probably a big internal reason that I created SWAT trade, because I feel like I need to create value for someone in order to get paid. With trading, you're not creating that value. So therefore, it's easy to become greedy because you can leverage it out the wazoo. And then the objective becomes money as opposed to peace, or as opposed to getting your mortgage paid off, or as opposed to these other things. See, money becomes the means to its own end, as opposed to being a means to an end. So if money is for the fact of gaining money, so we can get bigger boats, nicer vehicles, bigger houses, multiple houses, whatever the case is, that is where greed starts to factor, okay, because it becomes a game. However, if you are utilizing the things that you're creating and selling it to people that are getting good value out of it, then it becomes that then now it's got value. Okay. As a trader, this is very counterintuitive, because I'm like, wait, well, we have money, but what do we do? We just have to be careful. As Christian traders, we just have to be careful, because we have the opportunities now to turn our methodology into AI and to let that run. And I'm not saying that we're not going to do that at some point. I'm not going to mass commercial scale it. I'm not going to start a big hedge fund with it, as far as I know at the moment, which we would have the ability to do. But we're not interested in that. What I'm interested in staying grounded from the Lord, and He's grounding me and to make in this right now, at this level right now, to make sure that we stay in where we don't go out and get greedy. Okay. Now, I don't believe that making money in and of itself is greedy. I think that hoarding it is greedy. So, as much as I'd like to be able to say right now, as a Catholic man, I consider myself pretty devout. As much as I'd like to be able to say that, yeah, if I was making $100 million a year, I'd give away 80 million of it to the church. That's probably not true. I'd like to be able to say that because why do I need all that much money? I'd give it to the church. It becomes about the money itself, right? And smart economic decisions and the people that you're surrounded by and all this stuff, because they're not going to have the same ideologies. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that money just going to create more money. And that's okay that it does that. It's just that we need to be generous with that, So being comfortable with what we are creating, get out of debt, right? Pay off your land, pay off your home, pay off your properties. Use this to create these opportunities for you and security for your family. Then use it to create generational things. Okay. That might be a farm. That might be whatever it is you want it to be. It might be buying businesses or whatever the case is, and that's fine. This can be the backbone for whatever you want to do. With the liturgy of the land, is what we see is they bring this up in a very strong point. And I really like the way it's written in the way that this is done. But with the liturgy of the land, we can take something like what we do for a living, which is trading, and just utilize that. Once our properties are paid off and everything else, your base income does not have to be from the farm. Your base income or your supplemental income can be from trading. So you say, why would you farm? You farm because you love it. Okay, you raise chickens because you know where your eggs are coming from and you know how they're raised. You get, are you saving money by raising chickens? Depends on how you do it. If you do it in the permaculture method, absolutely. If you're not doing it in a permaculture method, then maybe not, because the feed and everything else that you have to buy. But you know where the food's coming from. There are lots of people that would like to live this lifestyle that just don't think it'll work out because they can't afford it. They put the numbers to it and like, well, now we have to be farmers and we have to create this produce. What if it doesn't work out? Yada, yada, yada. If you can make money from wherever you are via Starlink, like we have here, if you can make money from wherever you are, then it doesn't matter. So I would recommend that if you're going to read this book, the Liturgy of the Land, which I recommend you do, I would say to go ahead and get away to create money from wherever you are via the internet. That could be a YouTube channel, which is going to take a very long time to grow. That could be trading. That could be doing any number of things. Okay. But at the end of the day, when we, especially as Southern American Catholics, and you don't have to be Southern to enjoy this, obviously, but when we put our minds to this, we are connecting back to roots. We're connecting back to a time when family meant more than all this other stuff. Okay, before social media, heck, before the turn of the 19th, before the turn of the 20th century, before the turn of the 1900s. We get back to a time when things were important for people. When things of the home were important, when tradition was important, and if we just go back to that, I think this whole country would get a lot nicer to people, and I think that we would appreciate it a lot more. We're going to talk more on this channel about living in the way that I raised my family, and the what I find the benefits to be thereof. So stay tuned, stick around. God bless you. Thanks.